Hello juniors, and welcome back to programming. For this video, we're going to be going over comparison operators and how we use them in Python. So we already talked conceptually about what comparison operators are. Now we're going to be going over the syntax of how we utilize them in actual Python. So first, you're going to open up Eclipse and you're going to make a new project called comparison operators. I already have one, but you can go File, New, PyDev project, name it comparison operators, and click finish. Then what you can do is download the comparison outline.py that's on Canvas, and you're going to move that .py into your comparison operators project folder and use it to take notes as you're going through this video. All the tasks in there we will be covering in this video, so you should be able to follow along and complete that as you go through the video. I'm going to make a new module just called practice to go through all of these different things. So first, let's talk about comparison operators structurally. What do they look like? So the structure again is fairly simple. It's kind of like math operators. You're going to have a variable or data, then you're going to have the comparison operator, and then you're going to have another variable or data. So you have variable or data on one side, an operator, and then another variable and or data. That whole thing creates the comparison, and it gets simplified to either true or false. So we have a couple different types of comparison operators. There's equal to, less than, greater than, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. So those are all the different kinds, and we'll be going through them. So first, let's just look at 4 equal to 4. We know that 4 is equal to 4, so we'll say that that is true. That can be simplified to true. Notice that when you are comparing two things, use 2 equal signs, not 1. So when you're setting a variable, use 1 equal sign. Remember, x equals 4. That's setting x to 4. But if I want to compare x to 4, now I'm comparing x to 4. And we know that this will come out as true because x is 4 and when we ask the program, is x equal to 4, it comes out as true. But we can also make a comparison where it's not true. Does 2 equal 4? Is 2 equal to 4? And we know that that's going to come out as false because 2 does not equal 4. Next, we'll just go through the greater than and less than. Again, it works the same way. 2 is less than 3. That comes out to be true. 3 is less than 2. That comes out to be false. If we do 4 is greater than 3, that comes out to be true. And if we do 3 is greater than 4, that comes out to be false. So we have all these different ways of comparing variables and or data together. The last one we have is our equal, less than, or equal to. So this will be true if it is less than or equal to that. So if we do 3 is less than or equal to 4, we know that that will come out as true because 3 is less than 4. But at the same time, if we do 4 is less than or equal to 4, that will also come out as true because it's also equal to. And I can do it again with the other operator. If I do 4 is greater than or equal to 3, that comes out as true. But if I, true. And if I do 4 is greater than or equal to 4, that also comes out as true. So the only way it's going to come out as false is if we do something that is greater than, or something that is less than. So if we did 3 is greater than or equal to 4, that'll come out as false because 3 is not greater than 4, and 3 is not equal to 4, so it'll come out as false. Additionally, with all these different comparisons, you can store the Boolean value in a variable. So if we make v and make it equal to 4 is equal to 5, we can print this out. And if we print it, run as Python run, we can see it'll print false, because what it does is it figures out this calculation. So we look at it. Does 4 is equal to 5? Is that true or false? That's false. So then it sets v is set to 5. V is set to 5. And then we print out v is set to false. V is set to false. And then we print out v, and that comes out as false because 4 is not equal to 5. So that's false. And then v is set to false, and then we print out false. Next, let's talk about the errors. So remember, an error is a bug or something that is wrong with the program. There are two types of errors: syntax errors, which means that there's a problem with the program syntax, or logic errors, which means that there's a problem with the program's logic. For common syntax errors, remember that our syntax is a variable, an operator, and then another variable or data. So if we mess up one of those pieces, that's where the problem will be. Some common errors is if we misspell the variable on either side of it, or if we miss the operator, or miss some data entirely. So if we did something like this, the program is going to give us an error because we're missing. Look, it's telling us right now it's missing some data. It needs a variable and or data on both sides. Some common logical errors are using the wrong operator. So we'll be using these operators in complex ways. So we'll use it with strings. So if we say Michael is equal to Tenzin, and let's store that in a variable called x, and let's print out x. We know that that's going to come out to be false because this is not the same as this. We can just look at it and say those two things aren't the same. But what if we did x is equal to Michael, or x is set to Michael equal to Michael? What do you think that would come out as, true or false? And if we run that, we find out that it'll actually still be false because a capital letter is still different. So the only way that these two strings are going to be the exact same, or is going to come out as true, is if you use both it has to be the same case, so case matters, and it has to be the exact same string. So we'll be using this a lot for different comparisons that we'll be doing throughout the course. So when you're doing this, a logic error would be using the wrong operator. Maybe use a less than when you're supposed to use a greater than, or using a less than or equal to and it's just supposed to be equal to. This will happen with different functions that we have in the program. So you always have to make sure, am I using the right operator? It's kind of like math operators where you have to think about it logically. Does this work? Is this what I'm supposed to calculate? And another logical error is just using the wrong variables. Sometimes when we're doing a comparison, we get lost in what variables store what, and we use the wrong variable, and that will cause our program to give us the wrong answer. So we got to make sure that we're using the right variables at all time. So that's everything that I have in terms of the lesson. So again, make sure you downloaded the outline and went through that with me through this video. You're going to submit that on GitHub, following the GitHub submission process and sending the link on Canvas. Then you're going to go and do the drills. So here's the practice. You should have done the comparison outline, and this is the video you're watching currently. Then you're going to move on to the comparison operator drills. So let's give it a little preview. Again, this is just going to go through all the different, it's going to make you set different comparisons to different variables. So this is going to go through all the different types of variables and all the different types of comparison operators. Again, just like with mathematical operators, you can use this programming manual and it'll go through all those different comparisons and give you examples for them as well as explaining it. In the second half of the drills, you're just going to be saying whether something is true or false. So in the example, it's going to give you a problem and you're going to tell me whether this comes out as false or true. So does 4 equal 5? No, so that's false. And you'll just do that for all these different problems. And some are more complex and some are less complex. Some use mathematical operators to try to throw you, so just pay attention to it. After you complete the comparison operators drill, you'll submit them on GitHub, following the same GitHub submission process. Then you can move on to the debug comparison operators. And let's take a quick look at this. Again, it's going to be a function that has errors. So there's 3 different functions. There's comparison drill 2, and then shipping and tax. And so in each one, in the first one, there's 3 errors. In the second one, there's 1. And in the third one, there's 3. So all you're going to do is read what the function is supposed to do and see what are the errors. There can be syntax errors or logical errors. And just like with the other ones, these function descriptions will help you decide whether there's a logical error in this. Remember to only pay attention to errors with comparison operators. There's not going to be any errors with these if, elif, and elif statements. I know you've never seen them before, but that means you can ignore them. You can just pay attention to these operators. And for example, when you're going through this, you need to make sure that this matches what this does. So what this says needs these 3 different things need to match what these 3 things do. You don't need to understand these if statements. You just need to understand the comparison within there and then these print statements. We'll cover these later, but right now just focus on errors with these comparison and make sure that the functions are doing what they actually are supposed to do. Again, use all the common errors that we covered in this to guide you in finding these errors. Also, there's all this supplemental information. So if you need more help with if you want more examples, or you want to see all the different types, or you want someone else to teach you, we have W3 Schools and Tutorial Point, which teaches you in a different way than what we have. Other than that, I have nothing else for you, juniors. If you have any questions, you can always email us, but I will see you later.